With rotation coming up, I thought it'd be best to do a top 10 video ranking what I think are the top 10 biggest cards we are losing with rotation. I'm excited to get into this video because there's a lot of big cards we're losing, and I thought that it would be best to maybe rank what I think were the top 10 biggest ones. Now, if y'all are going to enjoy the video here on the second channel, leave a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't subbed to the second channel yet. Let's go look at the top 10 now. Coming to the number 10 spot, I've actually chosen Air Balloon. Air Balloon is a really nice card to have in the format, as it's just nice to have a free retreat pivot card almost in the format. Now, it doesn't give your Pokemon a free retreat cost, obviously, but there's a lot of Pokemon with a 1 and 2 retreat cost that exist, and it was just a really good card for those, because instead of having to play, like, Switch or Escape Rope, you can just have Air Balloon on, and at all times, that Pokemon can retreat. It was very, very good, and while cards like Switch kind of started to overtake this card in popularity, it was still a really nice card to have in the format. It's just really nice to put in a lot of different decks, and I love playing Air Balloon in all of my decks because it's just a really nice card to have. It saves you from having to play like 4 switching cards. It just means that you just always have that switch available as long as the Air Balloon stays in play, which a lot of the time it will. You don't have to worry about that getting discarded, and at the beginning of your turn, you can just promote a Pokemon and retreat it with Air Balloon. It's a pretty big loss to have, and it's very similar to Floatstone, which gave that Pokemon a free retreat, where Air Balloon was a nerfed version of it, but it's just weird to not have this type of card in the format. We've always had a Floatstone Air Balloon style effect in the format for a pretty long time. Since Sword and Shield came out, Floatstone existed back in the day. We had cards like a skateboard and U-turn board, which were a little similar and were nice to have in the format, and so losing Air Balloon is it's a loss that I'm going to miss quite a bit, and I hope that we do see a reprint. Obviously, when this video goes out, we don't have all the Scarlet and Violet cards revealed yet, so there is a chance they could reprint Air Balloon or a similar Air Balloon Floatstone-esque card in the future, which I hope they do, because it's just a really nice card to have in the format, and it's a card that I am going to miss quite a bit. And even though cards like Switch card, Escape Rope exist and are really good, Air Balloon will be missed, as it's just a really nice card to have in a lot of different scenarios, and it just frees more space in the deck over playing heavy Switch. Coming in at number 9 is Evolution Incense. Evolution Incense is a big loss for evolution-based decks. Of course, decks like Arceus really liked having a couple Evo Incense in the deck. With Ultra Ball in the format, we do have a Evolution search card, and there's also Capturing Aroma, but Evo Incense is just so straightforward with what it does. It just grab an Evolution Pokemon. Now, we are losing some big Evolution Pokemon in the format, like Shady Dealings rotating is big. Lugia getting nerfed pretty hard is another reason why Evolution Incense would fall off, but in this format, it's always good to have an Evolution-based search card in the format. Having both Ultra Ball and Evo Incense creates for some really cool deck building, and Lugia itself liked to play 4 of these, and again, Lugia is getting nerfed. It's losing more than just Evolution Incense, but Evo Incense is a big loss in general, as it's just going to impact a lot of decks that played Evolution Pokemon at a heavy count, and obviously with Inteleon rotating, Evo Incense kind of falls off in that regard, but I feel like if Arceus continues to be good in the new format, it would have probably played at least 2 or 3 Evolution Incense, so it's a pretty interesting loss to have, and a lot of Evolution-based decks, like Stage 1 decks, or even EX decks, would really have liked Evolution Incense, like the new Ampharos and Gardevoir EX, would adore this card, and they don't have it in the format. They gotta rely on Ultra Ball, or if we get an Evolution Pokemon Search card, which I don't know if we will, as we just got Nest Ball back. So yeah, Evolution Incense does come in at the number 9 spot. It's a pretty big loss, especially with the Evolution EXs coming out. Those cards will not have this card as a search card for those decks. And the number 8 spot is Capture Energy. Now, Capture Energy is one of the best special energy cards we've honestly ever had. It's a very helpful card, and there are a handful of decks that do play it. I think the big ones are Regis, Lugia, and Lost Box. Now, the thing with Capture Energy is it's not really a card you see like 4 of. I mean, obviously Lugia plays it as a 4 of, but that's about it. Capture never saw play as like a 4 of a lot of the time. A lot of the time is really just like a 2 or 3 of, but it's still a very good card to have, and especially with the loss of Quick Ball, that's just another basic Pokemon search card leaving the format. Now, Lugia does get nerfed big time, so it doesn't just lose Capture Energy, and a Lost Box may get a bit of a hit too, as a lot of Lost Box decks lose a lot of amazing rares, which does impact them too, but there are a lot of decks that still would have liked to have played Capture Energy. I'm sure Arceus could have played it. Even some of the new EX decks would have loved to have played Capture Energy. It's a really good card in the format, and it's a really nice card to have, but now that it's leaving, it's just another basic Pokemon search card leaving the format, and honestly, one of the best special energy cards maybe ever made. Just a really helpful card, and it saw a lot of play throughout its run in the format, and it will be sad to lose Capture Energy, as it's just going to be weird, and some decks will get hit pretty hard. I think this is a loss for Regis. Regis loses more than Capture Energy, but Capture Energy was just a great card for that deck in general, and losing Capture, it's a big loss. I definitely want to include it somewhere in the top 10 and I put it here at the number 8 spot. So Capture Energy, definitely a card that will be missed by quite a few different decks. At number 7, we have Ordinary Rod. Now, Ernie Rod is just a huge loss, and I know there's been a lot of trainers on this top 10 so far, mainly because there's so many good trainers we're losing, making a bigger impact than Pokemon, but Ernie Rod is one of the biggest trainers we're losing. It's a very good staple trainer to be losing. A lot of decks are going to be hit hard with the loss of Ernie Rod. There isn't really a good replacement for Ernie Rod. I mean, there's what? Clara, that's your supporter for the turn, and it puts cards back into your hand, not in the deck. There's also Yell's Cheer, once again, a supporter card. Doesn't put energy back, I don't think. There's Roseanne's Backup, which is only special energy, and only 1, as opposed to up to 2 energy. And obviously, there's Rescue Carrier, but that only puts back Pokemon with like 90 HP or less. So there isn't really good Ornate Rod replacement in the format, and it's a very big loss. Now, I will say there is a decent chance we do see Rod, Super Rod, Carrier S card come back at some point in the near future, because it's just a very good staple card to have. The format's always good when you have good recovery cards in the format, like Ornate Rod or Rescue Carrier or Super Rod. So honestly, I can definitely see them bringing back Ornate Rod at some point in the future, which I really hope they do, as again, this is a humongous loss to have in the format, because there's so many decks I would have loved to have had. And even with all these new basic Pokemon that will be good with EXs, Rod would be really good in combination with those cards. And not having a good recovery card like Rod really sucks. Like, it just goes hand in hand in like any decent deck you could play. And also, it's a pretty big loss for Lost Box, as Mirage Gate engines no longer have Ornate Rod to get basic energy back, which is a pretty big deal, actually. So Rod's a pretty huge loss, and it's going to be sad to see, because I just love having a card like this in the format. And again, I can honestly see them reprinting a Rod Rescue Stretcher type effect in the future, because it's just a very good effect to have, and it's healthy for the game. It's very healthy for the game to have a card like this in the format. So I'm expecting them to maybe reprint it. I don't know if it'll be in Scarlet Violet base or the second Scarlet Violet set we end up getting, because Stretcher came out in Guardians Rising. So there's a chance we do see that happen, which I really hope does happen, as I am going to miss Ornate Rod quite a bit. And coming to the number 6 spot is Shady Dealings. Now, Shady Dealings is a humongous loss, as it has been a cornerstone draw engine for a ton of decks for a very, very long time, but it is finally leaving. Now, I will say this engine has fallen off a little bit since like Lost Zone came out, and decks don't really need Shady Dealing anymore. Like, Lugia doesn't need Shady Dealing. Lugia just needs Luminion and Straw supporters. So Shady Dealings has fallen off a little bit, and that's why it's not like super high on the list, because the only deck that really plays it is just like Palkia and like a couple interesting like single prize decks like Radiant Charizard, Beedrill, and stuff. But Shady Dealing definitely is a big loss regardless. I mean, going forward, your deck can no longer play Sobble, Drizzle, Inteleon, and that is a big deal. There are going to be probably new cards that come out that would have loved it. Honestly, Shady Dealings could have been pretty good with a lot of the Stage 2 EXs that are going to be coming out in the future, which is a big deal. They don't have that option anymore. It was kind of the big draw engine of basic Pokemon that we're losing. There's obviously cards like Bibarel, there's Curlia, there's a couple others, but Shady Dealing itself, just losing the entire engine, is a big deal. Now, Keep Calling Sobble and Quick Shooting Inteleon will exist, and there is a world where maybe Quick Shooting will see play, because it's just a really good ability to have, but you won't be able to go Drizzle anymore, which means you can't just go like Sobble, Drizzle into an Inteleon the following turn. That option is gone, and that will kind of nerf that engine a little bit. And yeah, Shady Dealings is a very big loss for quite a few decks. I mean, decks like Palkia, which have kind of been falling off recently, do have to adapt without Shady Dealing anymore. The format will also be slowing down with rotation, and I do think Shady Dealing is a big reason why the format will slow down, as, again, decks like Palkia can't just use Drizzle or Inteleon to find any 2 cards they want to be as aggressive as they can be. So a big loss for sure, and I did want to put Shady Dealing somewhere in the list, because it is a huge loss, and while it has fallen off recently and has proven that Shady Dealings is no longer in style as it used to be, still a loss regardless. And I'm sure going forward, there were decks that are coming out that would have probably used Shady Dealings over any other draw engine. Coming at number 5 is Aurora Energy. Aurora Energy I had to put really high on this list, because I do think that it is a big loss, as it does effectively nerf 2 of the biggest decks right now. It will most likely make Regis a lot more unplayable, and it also is a huge hit for Lugia. Lugia does lose a lot more than Aurora, obviously, but Aurora is still a huge loss for Lugia, as there's a lot of Pokemon that are in the format that will not rotate, and also cards that will come out at some point in the future, most likely, that Lugia would have loved to have played, as it would have utilized Aurora with Archeops. But the Aurora Archeops combo is gone, and that's huge. Also, again, this card was like the cornerstone of the Regis deck, and Regis no longer has Aurora. Regis loses Capture, Speed Lightning, and Aurora Energy. Huge losses for Reggie. Like, Regis is going to be a lot worse now, and might not even be a good deck at all because it loses Aurora. And Lugia losing Aurora is big. It's just a great splash energy that Archeops can search out, and it allowed you to kind of make your Lugia deck as, you know, interesting as you wanted to make it, as you could just play Aurora with it and play like any basic Pokemon. But now that option will no longer be a thing as Aurora energy is rotating. There is another big splash energy leaving the format that Lugia would have loved to have played, obviously, too, but I had to put Aurora up on this list because it kills off Lugia and also kills off Regis, which is a double whammy. Both decks are very, very good right now, and both decks see a lot of play. And I mean, there's other decks that maybe would have liked to play Aurora. Now, there is a chance we do see Aurora Rainbow Energy like reprint in the near future, but we'll see what happens with that, because if they do reprint it, you got to keep in mind Lugia does exist, and if they reprint Aurora / Rainbow Energy, there is a chance that it makes Lugia broken again. But, of course, Lugia does lose some of the big Aurora attackers, obviously like the Amazing Rares, but again, there's still other Pokemon out there Lugia could have played, and there's also Pokemon to come out that Lugia could have played, and just losing Aurora makes Lugia a lot worse in that regard, so I had to put Aurora on this list, as it really hurts a lot of it hits two of the big archetypes in the format, and it just has to be on this list, and I feel like it would be a disservice not to put it in the top 5 at least, because it's a big loss. And coming in the number 4 spot is, of course, Marnie. Now we're getting into the top 4, and honestly, outside of the number 1 and 2 spot, I think number 3 and 4 can easily be switched around. But Marnie definitely is a humongous loss. I mean, it is one of the best supporters in the format right now, and its replacement is most likely going to be Judge, which already is starting to see play because it does disrupt Oranguru, so people are already playing Judge right now, so you get that early taste of it. But Marnie was just a very good card. It was not even a shuffle draw card. It let you draw 5 new cards. It disrupted your opponent's hand. Went very well with the Stadium card, Path to the Peak. And there aren't really that many good replacement supporters. I mean, yes, there is Judge, but that Judge is not Marnie, because Judge can also hurt your own hand. I mean, you also shuffle draw 4. Instead of drawing 5, you're drawing 4. Also, there's not that many other good supporters apart from, like, Research. I mean, there's Chorus's Experiment, which is a decent replacement, but not the best replacement. It's not Hand Disruption. Hand Disruption is just good to have. And a lot of people hated Marnie. I'm on the fence on Marnie. Like, I've always hated Marnie. It's a very annoying card. I've lost so many games because my opponent got a lucky Marnie on me early on or something. It's an annoying card in that regards, but it is nice to have Hand Disruption in the format. And again, there is Judge, which will most likely replace Marnie, but Judge is not as good as Marnie. Marnie is a very good card. And honestly, even an expanded Marnie continues to see a little bit of play because this is that good of a disruption draw card. So yeah, Marnie leaving's a big loss, and while there are cards like Judge and maybe even Roxanne that do sort of quasi replace it, it's not as good because Marnie Path is a deadly combo that wins games and will still win games in the new format, as Path, in my opinion, ain't going anywhere. It's still going to be very, very good in the new format, and I do think that losing Marnie with the Path combo is going to be a big deal, and I had to put Marnie in the top 4. And obviously, with decks starting to play more Research and Boss's Order and Serena even, well, Serena falls off a little bit with the new format, but you get my point, right? There were good supporters coming out, so Marnie has fallen off a little bit, but there are still decks that love to play Marnie, and a lot of decks win games because of Marnie, so I had to put Marnie in the top 4 because it's just a pretty good card, and it's a great loss in my opinion because I hate this card, but it's a big loss in general. A lot of decks lose that Marnie Path option, and it's a big deal to lose it, so had to put it in the top 4. And at number 3 is Crobat V. Now, the next 2 spots on this list are going to be the reason why the format is going to slow down quite a bit. And Crobat is a big loss because it's going to slow the game down a lot. Crobat sees quite a bit of play in a lot of different decks, and the reason is because of its ability Dark Asset. It acts as like an extra supporter for the turn a lot of the time, and losing that option to just go like Ultra Ball or Quick Ball for Crobat will no longer be a thing, so you can't just draw more cards in a turn. Crobat Research combo is no longer going to be a thing. Yes, Luminion sticks around, but Luminion gets you a supporter, so you're still using a effect to get a supporter. Crobat, you can use it to get a supporter, but it also gets you extra cards on top of that. It can bail you out of situations. It helps you find cards you're looking for, and it's a great card in the format, and it is going to be gone. And it will slow the format down a lot. If you ever have a bad starting hand where you don't get a good start, especially going first, but you maybe could have went Crobat if it existed, but that option's no longer there, that's a big deal, especially if you're like playing, I don't know, like Arceus or something, and like you whiff an energy turn 1 or whiff the turn Arceus, but you could have maybe went Crobat to find that Arceus. The option is no longer there, and that is a big deal. So yeah, I had to include Crobat on this list, very high on the list, because it plays a big factor into why the format will slow down. I had no doubt in my mind if Crobat did stick around in rotation, it probably would have seen a lot of play still, especially with a lot of the cards we are losing. I think like Palkia probably would have played like 2 Crobats, Arceus would have played a Crobat still, but now that Crobat's out, it's a big deal. Another kind of interesting thing to note is The option to play like a Dark Attacker Crobat VMAX is also gone alongside Crobat, because even if Crobat VMAX stuck around, there was no Crobat V to play it with. And it's just an interesting Dark Attacker that Arceus could have played, mainly because Mew VMAX will still be insanely good in the new format, and Crobat VMAX is an okay counter to Mew. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there. But yeah, Crobat's a big loss, and it's a great loss because it will slow the game down. I think the game slowing down is a good thing, especially with the EXs coming out. And yeah, had to put Crobat on the list. I think it's definitely top 3 material. Like I said earlier, Marnie and Crobat, like I said, are maybe interchangeable. Like you could argue Crobat could be 4, Marnie could be 3, but I think Crobat is a bigger loss than Marnie, as Marnie is a factor as to why the game can slow down as you get a bad hand, but it also ends game quickly, because sometimes Marnie into a bad hand ends the game really quickly. You can't do anything, your opponent overpowers you. But Crobat also is a big factor. It's also like a disruption comeback card that is also gone. Yes, Bibarel exists, but yeah, Bibarel ain't Crobat. Lumineon also ain't Crobat. Crobat is a one-of-a-kind type of card, and it is gone from standard now, so yeah, wanted to put it at number 3. And coming at number 2 is Scubenet. Now, this card I debated putting at number 1. I thought long and hard about it. The Scubenet is a very, very good card, and it really slows the format down. Once again, it's a card that, like Crobat, slows the format down, and in a good way. The big thing is this card is going to make Lost Zone very much worse, and probably a lot more slower, because they can't just go like net, Comfy, and just like spam Flower Select in a single turn. They don't have that option to reset Comfy as easily now, and that is huge. Scubenet also saw play in a lot of other decks, not just Lost Box, and losing it is a big deal. The big thing also, this card doesn't state rule boxes, meaning that this card would work with the new EXs coming out. So that option to like instantly fully heal an EX card with Scubenet will not be a thing, which is kind of a saving grace, to be honest. The thinking about the fact that your opponent can put like a stage 2 EX in play, and then you don't one-shot it because they have like 330 HP, then they net heal it. It's just mental. They have to play Cheryl, not Net, which is a huge difference. So, yeah, Net's huge. It slows the format down a lot. Lost Box gets a lot worse. Lost Zone Engine gets a lot worse because of Net rotating, and I had to include Net on this list. And I thought about putting number 1, but I think the number 1 spot is universally going to be agreed upon as the biggest loss, and you probably already know what it will be, but I had to put Net at number 2. Net is easily the second biggest loss in the rotation. It's going to slow the format down, which is a good thing. Again, Crobat and Net rotating slows the format down, and that's good. There is one fast deck in the format after rotation, and that's Mew VMAX, but Mew didn't play Genesect, or didn't play Scubenet or Crobat. They just played Genesect. So, yeah, I had to put Net high on this list. There's no doubt in my mind, and no doubt that anyone would agree that, yeah, Net has to be on this list. Especially because, also, again, it would have worked with the X Pokemon, which is a huge deal. So, had to put Net at number 2. Now, before we get to number 1, I do have some honorable mentions I wanted to list. Before I get to number 1, I did have a couple honorable mentions that I did want to list, like I said. And let's look at some of the ones that didn't quite make the top 10. First one is going to be Powerful Energy. This would probably be the number 11 spot, just because it's a huge hit for Lugia. I do think Aurora is a bigger loss for Lugia, but Powerful is another big loss for Lugia, as Lugia does lose the option to just go like 4 Powerfuls in a turn and one-shot you. Also good with Stoutland. And Lugia going forward maybe could have played, it was such a loss of Aurora, could have played like a powerful Colorless Box deck with, like, I don't know, like Slacking, Stoutland or something, but that option's now gone. So yeah, Powerful probably would be number 11. And I thought about putting it in the top 10. It's a pretty decent pick for the top 10, but I had to put Powerful outside the top 10. But yeah, it's definitely a big loss for sure and has to be an honorable mention. And maybe it deserved to be number 10 or 9, but I think it's probably just number 11. Amazing Rares. I didn't really think there was any Amazing Rare to specifically choose, as they all see play in their own rights. I mean, Yveltal is really good within Lugia. It's one of the best cards in Lugia, but Aurora rotates. And then there's obviously like Rayquaza and Raikou, which are really good in the Lost Zone Engine deck. But yeah, Amazing Rares really only got to just see play now with these new cards we've had with Lost Zone, Mirage Gate, and Lugia Archeops. But now that option will be gone, and Amazing Rares are rotating, which sucks to see, as they were really cool to have in the format. So yeah, all the Amazing Rares rotate. Rayquaza, Raikou, Yveltal, pretty big losses, and I definitely had to put them outside the top 10, I think. Training Court's another big loss. I am very sad to see this card go. It's a very good counter stadium to play in the format, especially when you're comparing it with Radiant Greninja. And with Path to Peak still looking to be very dominant, and honestly, doesn't look like there's many good replacements. There's like, what, Lost City, Collapse Stadium, the new Beach Court, but none of those are Training Court. Training Court is probably the second best stadium in the format right now, besides Path to Peak, which is the best. And not having that easy, counterable stadium that comes in handy sucks to see. It makes Path a lot more powerful. And I really hope that we see like a Training Court Viridian Forest type card come back at some point in the future, as I really think it's something that does make the game a lot more healthier and creates a healthier standard format when there's such a game warping stadium with Path to Peak in the format. And then I also wanted to, of course, include Galarian Zigzagoon, because it is a big loss. A lot of decks love their Goons. Obviously, net rotating is also a good card for Goon, but Goon still is good. I mean, hey, he's playing Arceus, he's playing Palkia. Wanted to include it. That option to play Goon is no longer there. It's also really good in Lost Box. Forgot to mention that. Very, very good in Lost Box, as it does act as a great card in the mirror match and fixes a lot of math in general. So, yeah, Goon is another big loss for the format, without a doubt. So I wanted to include Goon here outside of the top 10 in my honorable mention slot. But now let's get on the number 1 spot, which I'm sure you probably already know what it is, but let's see. And to no one's surprise, number 1 is, of course, Quick Ball. Quick Ball is a humongous loss. Yes, we got Nest Ball. Nest Ball and Quick Ball. One of the downsides of Nest Ball is it doesn't let you use Luminion's ability. It doesn't let you use Pumpkaboo's ability. Quick Ball is a fantastic card. Not only does it discard a card from your hand, which comes in clutch a lot of the time, especially with cards like Archeops or just thinning, but it's gone now, and it puts the Pokemon in your hand, not on the bench right away. So yeah, losing Quick Ball is a big loss. I don't think anyone's going to argue that it is probably the number 1 spot. There is really no other card on the scale of Quick Ball rotating that is just universally that good. There's really no other replacement for Quick Ball. Yes, Nest Ball and Ultra Ball do exist, and they're decent cards, but on the level of how good Quick Ball is, nah, it ain't even close. Quick Ball is one of, honestly, it's probably the best ball search card we've ever had. Maybe Ultra Ball is deserving of that title, but Quick Ball is just a ridiculously good card, and it's one of the best cards we've ever seen, to be honest, and losing it is going to be a huge loss. I don't think we'll ever see Quick Ball come back at all, as it's just a very good card. I don't see Pokemon ever reprinting it, but I had to put Quick Ball number 1. It is without a doubt the easiest pick for number 1 on this list. It's a huge loss, and it's going to be a huge hit for the format. Again, it's with Lumineon sticking around, Quick Ball can't search Lumineon out. The only way you could really utilize Lumineon to its full potential is Ultra Ball. And that is not an option anymore, as Quick Ball does leave the format, and you can't just go Quick Ball for Lumineon. You have to Ultra Ball for Lumineon, because you can't Nest Ball for it, and I wanted to put that out there. But yeah, Quick Ball is a big loss. Very good Pokemon search card that will be rotating out of the format, and it's big, because, yeah, a lot of decks really like playing it, and its discard effect even was also a crutch a lot of the time, so it is now gone. But yeah, that is it for, in my opinion, the top 10 biggest cards will lose rotation. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought of this list. Did you think I maybe missed out on a card, maybe even in the honorable mention slot? I thought about maybe adding cards like Oranguru and Big Charm in the honorable mentions, but yeah, I think this list was pretty decent. Let me know what you thought. Let me know what you think, and I'm excited for rotation. It's still a bit of a ways to go, obviously. We still gotta wait till the end of March, but it can't come any sooner, because the format is going to slow down, and I'm all for it. But yeah, thanks for watching. Again, if you are new to the second channel, make sure to click the subscribe button down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and hopefully it was maybe helpful to y'all. If you haven't checked out my other rotation guides, check them out, because you can learn more about rotation in those guides too. But that'll be it for me. Have a good day. Bye-bye.